So Mark Selby has lifted the trophy in Taiyuan, the first China Open since 2019, and with it a cheque for £250,000. Now, later on in the video, I'm going to talk about how that's affected the rankings. I'm also going to talk about Nopponn Saengkham, his amazing run to the final, Shaun Murphy's ridiculous record-breaking match against Matt Selt, and also what might be a missed opportunity for Neil Robertson. But once again, we have to send our congratulations to the jester from Leicester, Mark Selby. He has beaten Pang Junzhu and 3 former world champions in order to get just to the final. And in that entire run, he only dropped 7 frames. He beat Pang Junzhu 6-3, Kyron Wilson 6-1, Neil Robertson 6-1, and Stuart Bingham 6-2. So surely the way he's playing at the moment, Selby will be eyeing up that #1 spot on the world rankings. Now, before we get into the rest of the video, I first of all want to take this opportunity to thank you for watching, and also remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Now, we've touched on it briefly already, but we have to give a special mention to Shaun Murphy. In his first round demolition of Matt Selt, he produced an amazing display of snooker. And in fact, at one point went 607 points without reply. Now that actually broke a long-standing record of Ronnie O'Sullivan. 12 years ago, back in 2014, Ronnie O'Sullivan went 556 points unanswered. So this really did eclipse that. Murphy also managed to score 4 consecutive centuries on the way to that 6-0 win. But of course, the first round of the China Open was not kind to all of the top seeds, like you would have expected. We seen Mark Williams eliminated by Zhou Yulong. Zhou then going on to make the semi-final, so perhaps in hindsight, not as much of a surprise. We seen Judd Trump crash out against eventual finalist Nopponn Saengkham. John Higgins went down to Stuart Bingham, with Mark Allen having withdrawn from these 2 Chinese events. I am of course talking about this China Open and next week's Wuhan Open. That left Hossein Vafaei to go through to the next round unopposed. Now, Hossein Vafaei, we can't mention him without talking about his match against Stuart Bingham. And in particular, I'm wanting to talk about the 5th frame. Now, we've all seen it at this stage, but I really want to hear from you below in the comments. What is your thoughts on this? In case you haven't seen it, here's a clip from TNT Sports.
Foul. Stuart Bingham 4. Oh.
He had no shot. All he could see was that red, and you couldn't help but going off.
But now he's already made the foul.
Yeah, I know, but you couldn't. There's no other outcome. He's always going to go in off. So he's got the red safe, but he's gone in off.
So you can see Stuart Bingham really took offence to the shot that Hossein Vafaei played. He felt that there was no other outcome with that shot. The cue ball was going to go into the pocket. That of course left Bingham with ball in hand, but with the reds down the table tied up. It was of no advantage to him. He'd put Hossein Vafaei in a position where he was hoping to get an advantage. And I think that's what really irked him. Now, in one sense, I don't think Hossein Vafaei has done anything wrong. He's played off a red, the white has gone in, and this happens multiple times in every match, and there's not an issue. So why is this different? Now, I want to thank Gareth Richards 9572. Right here on YouTube, he commented And let me just read this to you. Executing a standard stroke with a cue where the white ball ends up in the pocket is a normal legal stroke, regardless of your tactical motivation. So that kind of backs up what I'm saying. Hossein Vafaei hasn't actually done anything wrong. Now later on in the video, I am going to touch again on the gentlemanly conduct part of this game that we love. But it appears that by the rules, Hossein Vafaei has done absolutely nothing wrong. But I would really love to hear what you think about it. Write it down in the comments and let me know. So arguably the biggest tie in the quarterfinals was Neil Robertson against Mark Selby. I was really left with egg on my face after this match. I'd made a short video about Neil Robertson and about how if he won the China Open with the ranking points, with Judd Trump losing points, he could become the world #1. Now I'm guessing Mark Selby seen my video and he obviously took offence to it. He came out and he gave Robertson a bit of a beating. 6-1 it was in the end. So I seen an interview with Neil Robertson before his match against Mark Selby, and he was asked about the possibility of going back to world #1, and he kind of brushed it off. He talked about, you know, being a family man and it's not something he thinks about and things like that, but surely he's got to have seen this as a bit of a missed opportunity. On to the semi-finals we go, and wouldn't you expect a deciding frame in a huge semi-final match to be a bit edgy, a bit cagey, a bit tactical? Yeah, I definitely would. But obviously Nopponn Saengkham wasn't in the mood for any of that. In his decider against Zhou Yulong, Zhou broke off, left a long red, and that was all she wrote. Nopponn Saengkham making a break of 134 to get through to his first ever ranking event final. So, as I said, this was Nopponn Saengkham's first ever ranking event final. And there were times early on in the match where it probably looked like it. Maybe he looked a little bit nervous. There were some easy balls being missed. But luckily for Nopponn, both players were in a similar position. Selby, although he wouldn't have been nervous, I'm sure, he's a veteran when it comes to finals, but he was missing balls as well. So Saengkham would have been absolutely delighted after the first 6 frames to be leading 4 frames to 2. But then came the famous 7th frame. It started off pretty well for Saengkham. He made 57 before missing a tricky long red. Selby came back to the table. He made 53. He cleared the table all the way down to the brown. And with that, the drama started. So at this point, Saengkham has a 4-point lead with 3 balls left on the table, the blue, pink and black. Of course, Saengkham only needed blue and pink, whereas Selby needed to clear all 3. After a short safety exchange, the table was looking a bit messy. We had the blue on one cushion up by the green spot. We had a pink on the other cushion and the black down on the bottom cushion. Nopponn was then left with a shot across the bed of the table. He was trying to catch the blue ever so thin, tiny amount, to leave the blue near enough where it was and probably the white on the bulk cushion. Then this happened. Take a look at this video from the World Snooker Tour YouTube channel.
If he could win the frame or not. But it's made Nopponn at least think, I guess, about what he's doing. Well, he thinks he hit it.
Yeah, I thought the blue moved, I must confess.
So, how do we unbox all of this? My TikTok channel went absolutely crazy over this. Personally, I wasn't sure if Saengkham had actually made contact with the blue, but he seemed adamant that he had. The commentators, it was Alan McManus, Neil Foulds, they were pretty sure that he'd hit the ball as well. After watching it about a dozen times, I still couldn't make up my mind. I still didn't know whether he'd hit it or not. I was questioning my own eyesight. Now, I mentioned earlier about the conduct of players in snooker players are always so honest. They'll always call fouls on themselves. So the only thing that was in the back of my mind was, I'm sure Nopponn would not have claimed to have hit that blue if he hadn't of. He must have been very, very sure that he'd hit it. So I put it out there to the people, my followers on TikTok. I asked them this: should the referee have deferred judgment to the players? Now I'm going to caveat that by saying I think Mark Selby thinks Nopponn Saengkham has made contact with the blue. But anyway, the comments certainly didn't disappoint. I actually had Ciara O'Connor was one of the first to comment, and Ciara said he hasn't hit it. And then about 15 minutes later commented again, saying that they thought he had hit the blue. Tom Stedman was another one to comment. The blue clearly moves. But then Chopper was on the other side of the fence when it came to whether the referee should defer to the opinion of the players. Chopper said, what's the point of a referee if the players are going to decide? And to be honest, you can't really disagree with that. Look, in all sports, the job of a referee is extremely difficult. They have to make the tough calls, and we have to respect them. And so that's what happened. The foul was called, the frame continued, and by the end of the session, it was Mark Selby 4, Nopponn Saengkham 4. I think, personally, that decision really took the wind out of Nopponn Saengkham's sails. It was probably playing on his mind a little bit for the rest of the afternoon, and then going into the evening session, Mark Selby was just too much for him in the end. And in the end then, it was 10-6 to Selby. Just a reminder, if you're kind of enjoying this snooker content, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel, and if you give this video a like, it would be even better. So, with that runners-up check of £100,000, Nopponn Saengkham has actually moved in the rankings from 45th up to number 27. And surely he has to be delighted with that. Now, I'm sure he will be very disappointed to have lost a ranking final, but overwhelmingly, he must be absolutely delighted with his week's work. Now, at the top of the charts, the updated rankings heading into the Wuhan Open. Number 1, Zhao Jintong. Number 2, Neil Robertson. Remember, he had the opportunity. He could have actually gone to the top of the list had he been able to lift the trophy. In at number 3, we have Wu Yiza. Number 4, Mark Selby. And then who would have thought it? 5th on the rankings now is Judd Trump. That is, of course, because he will be losing the 500,000 points that he had for winning the Saudi Arabia Masters back in 2024. So with that, it's time for me to depart. I hope you've enjoyed this little roundup of the China Open. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and I will catch you in the next one.